Good evening, everyone. This is Attorney Marlon Hill, Florida State University College of Law graduate in 1995. That is a ways ago, but we want to welcome you to our second season of BAN TV, our Black Alumni Network TV. We are so great to start this new school year with you, 2022 to 2023. Hopefully, you will join us for the rest of the school year in the Florida State University College of Law community. Once a month, we will interview one of our faculty or students, law alumni, friends of the law school, and we're so glad that you could be here with us. We have a very, very special guest tonight. She is responsible for the culture at our College of Law in Tallahassee, and she's coming to us from Vanderbilt. She's coming to us from Georgetown Law and a number of other great academic institutions from across the country, but she is ours now. She is a no, and we would like to welcome you to BAN TV, Dean Erin O'Connor. Welcome to BAN TV.
Marlon Hill, thank you so much for having me. I've been an observer of this program for a while, but it's such an honor and a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
So great to have you. I mean, I gave everyone a little bit of a snippet of who Dean Erin O'Connor is, but certainly I would love for you to tell us the quick personal story of who Dean Erin O'Hara O'Connor is. You have two O's. That should be a story in and of itself.
I tell people I used to think I had the most Irish name possible. Now I know I do. Well, thank you.
About your personal background.
Thank you. So I grew up in Buffalo, New York, in a blue-collar neighborhood, a blue-collar family. Was just one of those nerdy schoolgirls who performed well and liked the teacher to be happy. My parents divorced when I was young, so my grandmother used to take me to work with her. She worked for the Army Corps of Engineers when we had no school, and it was a choice between helping her file in her office, or if I promised to behave, I could go across the street to the courtroom. And so from the age of 7 or 8, watching courtroom trials, I knew law school would be in my future.
Courtroom trials? What trials were you watching?
So I went to the county courthouse, which was across the street from where my grandmother worked, and I would just sit and watch trials. I found them fascinating. And one day I went into a courtroom and there was a female lawyer arguing a case, and I had never seen that before. And I realized that day I could do this. And I've never tried a case, but I love the law. And so I knew law school would happen one day. Went to college in Rochester, New York, close by, and then law school at Georgetown. I clerked in Philadelphia on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit with then Chief Judge Dolores Sloviter. I had planned to go back to Washington, D.C. to practice law for a few years before I became a law professor, and I ended up at the University of Chicago on a fellowship instead, and never made it to practice, and have been made a career in the academy for, except for that clerkship, has been my entire path as a lawyer, and came to Florida State University in 2016 as the dean.
Well, that is the movie script version of Dean Erin O'Hara O'Connor, but I want to go back to that time that you were in that courtroom. What was it about the law or about those trials that really resonated with you as you matriculated through college and law school? Is there a memory backing those in the courtroom that connected to you?
I was fascinated by the advocacy system. I was fascinated by the notion that no one in the courtroom actually knew the truth of the matter. And whatever was being litigated, but that each side was doing the best they could to create a story that was consistent with the conclusion they wanted. And I loved watching the judge really try to do the best the judge could. And back then they were all men, the best he could to ensure that each side had they had to follow the rules, but they each had an opportunity and a voice, and each party had a day in court. And I just thought that was a really amazing way that we resolve disputes.
Was there one attorney, male or female, that you connected to, that you stayed in touch with to ask questions, to
Yeah.
learn a little bit more about their background or their own journey? Who was that person or persons?
I have to say, I was so young and so shy at the time. I just sat in the back. I don't think I ever had the courage to speak to anyone. I was just watching what was
Or Dean
happening.
is shy? No way.
Remember, I was 8 years old.
But you weren't that shy to step into a courtroom. How many 8-year-olds have the courage and the boldness to, or just the understanding to step into a courtroom to observe trials? So that's definitely not a shy move.
No, that's true. But remember, the alternative was filing in an office.
You can learn both in both of those places for sure.
Yes.
So before Georgetown, college was.
I went to college at the University of Rochester. I was double major, political science and economics.
And was the college student Erin still shy?
I think I'd come out of my shell by then.
Excellent. And what were you involved with on campus at Rochester? What was your thing to do?
I was mostly involved in the campus radio station. I loved the news section. I was a student reporter. I particularly loved election night. Following the elections was fascinating. I didn't get a chance to engage in much more. I worked full time through college. I was invited to join the women's swim team, but I just couldn't figure out how to practice a few hours a day and still get everything else done.
Wow.
But it was a great experience.
Do you recall what election you were following at the time?
Well, so I was in college from 1983 to 1987. So we covered local elections in 1984, 83, 84, and 84. Yeah.
Wow. We could have an entire Band TV episode about elections then and elections now.
Oh, yes.
For sure.
I've got a couple great faculty to recommend for you to talk about that.
Oh, that would be nice. We'd definitely love to dig into that. So tell us a little bit about the transition from Rochester to Georgetown. Why did you pick Georgetown, and did you have other choices? Tell us a little bit about that transition from New York to DC.
Yes. So I love the idea of going to law school in Washington, D.C. because it was the nation's capital. I could go to the Supreme Court. I could go to the legislature. But the real reason I ended up in Washington, D.C. for law school is I followed a boy who was already working in Washington, D.C. And so it made it easier to move a large distance away from my family geographically because I knew someone who was in Washington. But it was a very good experience in law school. It wasn't quite the experience that most of our students have at Florida State University, in the sense that Georgetown is a very, very large law school, and it's a pretty competitive space. The student culture is not a negative one; it's just not as personable as it is at our College of Law. But there's a lot to do in the area, so that was fun.
Did your Georgetown law experience demystify anything that the 8-year-old Erin was learned at that time, and then throughout college? Did it live up to its expectations, or what surprised you?
I think it really did. It definitely lived up to its expectations. I think in Washington, D.C., faculty at a lot of law schools are involved not just in their teaching and in their research, but they're involved in a lot of activities around town. So I was surprised how many really famous lawyers I got to meet in law school, and how many famous, Supreme Court justices were married to faculty members at the law school. But at the same time, I was also surprised by, in some ways, how little we students mattered to faculty who were just spectacular scholars and connected to all these really famous people. And I was really, at that point in time, I knew I was interested in being a law professor, but I knew I was committed to making sure that the people around me were the most important part of what I do.
So you probably get this question as a dean, Dean Erin, but as a law student, what classes did you gravitate to, and what classes did you like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to go to this class now?
So my favorite class as a first year law student was contracts. I really loved the professor. I love the way the professor pushed all of the students to think critically about the subject matter. I followed a lot of my favorite professors through law school. So my contracts professor all taught conflict of laws, which I loved, and I teach to this day. My constitutional law professor, who I also learned a tremendous amount from, he really taught us how to make an argument and how to defend an
Mm,
argument.
mm.
He taught us the real importance of analytical reasoning, but he also taught my administrative law course, and so I loved that course as well. I think I gravitated more toward professors. I loved all the subject matter, but which professors could really inspire me to go to the next level?
Well, were you a solo studier or were you a group studier?
Group study all the way. We had
And
my first year, five of us female students joined together on a Sunday afternoon. I think the only thing we had in common is none of us cared much about football. Um, but we would join together every Sunday afternoon to study together. And it's something that I encourage our students to do to this day, just to find people who are different from you and who see the world differently than you do and who have experienced many different things than you have, because you can't possibly anticipate all that there is to think about in a legal question unless you're approaching it from many different
right.
perspectives.
Besides having a diverse group of friends, law school friends in a group study, what other advice would you have for students who are studying in a group or studying in general as it relates to their law school experience, looking back at your own?
Yeah, I think studying in a group, you really have to be careful to use your time wisely. It's often um, a trap, if you will, for students studying in groups to spend their time being miserable, complaining, worrying, stressing one another out. I think it's so important, if you're going to have a study group, to say, okay, well, we may spend the first 5 or 10 minutes talking about whatever anxiety we're experiencing regarding the course or preparing for exams, but then we really need to focus on the materials, on learning the materials, on providing one another hypothetical new situations to apply those legal principles to. I think that's critically important. And then another piece of advice I would give, which wasn't one I followed as a student, but I learned over time, which is, if you're studying in a group, there comes a time, a day or two before the final exam, where you stop peppering one another with material about the course. I remember walking into a final exam to tell my study mates, hey, I just had this really interesting thought about this course material. And my classmates just couldn't take it anymore. Just stop. This is
I
not the
do
place.
I do remember some of my study group partners that were over compulsive about these last minute insertions when you're going into a zone, right?
Right.
Um, but we'll come back to some of those law
Okay.
school experiences. But so after Georgetown, you entered private practice. What did you practice and where?
I never did. I never did enter private
Okay.
practice. I clerked in Philadelphia, and I had planned to go back to Washington D.C. to practice law there. But while I was clerking, I was offered a fellowship at the University of Chicago, and it was such a neat experience. I thought, well, I'll go do this, and then I'll go to Washington. And I just loved the academic environment, so I never practiced at all.
So when did the seed get planted that being a dean was a real prospect? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that's a great question, because I'm an unexpected dean, if you will. I didn't think that I'd be interested in being a dean. I remember my fellowship at the University of Chicago. I had lunch with a retired faculty member and retired dean, and I remember asking him, why would one want to be a dean? And he laughed and said, at some point in your career, you realize that you've made your biggest contributions, and the largest contribution you have still remaining is to help launch other people in making their great contributions in the law.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, that's interesting, but not anything I would ever be interested in doing. So fast forward 25 or 30 years, and I had become close with Dean Don Widener and with some of the faculty at Florida State's law school. And so I got a call one day when I think about applying to the deanship, and I thought, that's nothing I've really given much thought to, but
Right.
it was a time and it was the right time and the right place to apply.
So when you hung up the phone with Dean Don of the prospects of becoming dean, what occurred to you at that moment?
Yeah, well, so what had happened, this was 2015, and what had happened in the previous few years was that law schools have really been experiencing a recession. Applications to law school had plummeted 40%. Law schools were competing for all the strong students, trying to compete through very, very generous scholarships. So less and less tuition revenue was coming in, fewer and fewer students were coming in, but yet the students' needs were greater and greater because it was harder and harder to get a good job coming straight out of law school. And I just felt that other law schools hadn't thought as richly and as creatively about what that new environment, which I suspected was permanent, and how to be able to build a very successful legal educational structure within that new, more challenging environment. So that's why I say it's the right time. I just knew I knew of ways to make sure that any law school where I was dean would be on solid economic footing and could move forward in a strong fashion. And I loved Florida State University. I'd been at the law school for about a month in 2008. I got to meet many of the faculty and the students. I loved the collaborative environment. I loved the student culture. So it was the right place.
And you started to articulate a vision as dean, because now the reality of you potentially becoming dean must have started to manifest itself. What did you sketch or jot down as to what you wanted your vision for the Florida State University College of Law to be, having had a relationship with the school before? Was it different, or was it something that you thought was going to really embellish what you already knew?
I felt the core vision that was already in place at Florida State's College of Law was the right vision. That was part of the attraction of the job, and by that I mean that I really feel that FSU was strongly focused on providing the best possible legal education that it could for students in an environment that would provide really rich practical skills opportunity, but all at the lowest possible cost to students. Too often we see law school graduates so burdened with debt that it limits what they can do for a career. And our graduates should be able to practice any area they want. If you want to be a public interest lawyer, if you want a government law career, if you want to be a public defender or a state's attorney, you should be able to do that and not have to worry about what your debt burden is. And so I love that. I love the focus that Florida State has always had on first generation law school students. The vast majority of our students don't have a lawyer in their family. They're moving into this new career and charting what we hope is a very strong professional path, but also a socioeconomic path for their families. And that's really important.
I was one of those students. Only person in my family to go to law school. I still think I'm the only lawyer in my family. I get all the phone calls. So I definitely have Florida State University College of Law to thank for that. So Dean, tell me, so what were some of the core values that you wanted your law school to have? Now you've taken the gavel. We have transitioned from leadership. Dean Don was there for many, many years. What footprint did you want to start making?
So I wanted to start with that core, which was so very important, but focus on both sort of how legal practice is changing and how legal education should change, and also focus on a little bit more strongly on assisting our communities and doing it in the most ethical fashion possible. So we have built an incredibly rich curriculum around professionalism, wellness, diversity, pro bono, and helping our communities. And I think all of that is just critically important. When I attended law school, most of us were no good at math, couldn't stand the sight of blood, and but we're looking smart and looking to make a good living. And I think that's not what motivates the law students today. Students who come to law school come because they want to make a difference in the world. They want to see a change, and they're hoping that the legal skills that they develop in law school will help them along the path of doing that. And so how do we build a good structure for students who really have really amazing values and can be true leader lawyers of the future? So that's been a real focus. But at the same time, we are really trying to stay at the cutting edge of law and technology, law and business, trying always to think about new ways to train our students to be prepared for not the legal practice that was or is, but the legal practices that they'll face in the future.
How would you then go ahead.
I was going to say, and then undergirding everything has been a focus on creating a solid economic model so that we have the resources that we need to achieve all of these goals while keeping the law tuition fixed and increasing and supporting student scholarships wherever possible.
Yeah. Well, we would love to also get your perspective on the direction of the law school as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But we certainly can't talk about Florida State's law school without talking about the history, right? So when you first arrived at the law school, whether as a professor, or a guest professor, and then now as dean, and you looked at the formation of the law school, the connection to Florida A&M University, and that history as it relates to, in particular, Black law students. What comes to mind to you in regards to the law school's history and how that fits into the core values that you just articulated?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I came to the law school as the dean, and I joined the law school as the dean in July of 2016. And just about that time, FAMU had a new dean from their law school, and she and I met at an ABA conference for new deans. We call it Baby Dean Camp.
Dean Camp.
Yes. And we instantly bonded. Neither one of us knew about our kind of joint, sometimes positive, sometimes troubled history together. What we knew was that we were both nearly 6 feet tall with big feet, but loved women's shoes. And we were in Chicago. We spent our time trying to find beautiful shoes that would, fit our feet. And we talked about law and being deans. And it wasn't
Whisper and tell us your favorite brand.
I'm not a brand person so much as a colorful, kind of flair person. But it wasn't until we actually got into our offices that we learned about the history of the two law schools, and how kind of bound up the history of our two law schools was with the integration or non-integration of the University of Florida's law school. And so we started to think about ways that we could honestly talk about that history, but also try to forge positive paths forward together, because FAMU is close by and we have some resources in common. So we were about to celebrate our 50th anniversary of the law school at Florida State University, and I talked FAMU's dean into lending us back some books that were part of FAMU's original law library.
Really?
That were given to Florida State University when FAMU's law school in Tallahassee closed down. That became the Virgil Hawkins book collection that were separately kept at Florida State's College of Law, and then were gifted back to FAMU's law school when their new campus opened in Orlando. And so we were lent those books to provide a display about the history of those books and the history of the two law schools, and kind of their joint fates, if you will. And I thought it was a really nice way to, celebrate and honor FSU's 50 years, but to acknowledge that not every aspect of it is a moment of pride, but to think about positive paths forward. And so last week, FAMU on their Tallahassee campus, they had a plaque dedication to commemorate the original law school on Tallahassee's campus.
Last week?
Yes, and the
Really?
plaque lists all 57 graduates of FAMU's College of Law when it was at the Tallahassee campus. And
That is amazing.
we brought some students and some faculty and some administrators from FSU because we wanted to be there to celebrate that with them. And it was a really, really neat occasion. And some of their Tallahassee campus law graduates were actually at the event, which was neat.
Well, certainly, the snapshot of that history is certainly something that we want to celebrate and to be aware of. When we speak of diversity, equity, and inclusion, though, it doesn't just have to do with the Black Alumni Network. And I'm sure when you came in as a Dean Erin in 2016, you took a snapshot of the law school's DEI profile. What did you see then, and what are you seeing into the future of where you'd like to see it go? Give us a sense of that.
That's a great question. So I saw a number of things. First, one of the real attractions of Florida State's College of Law was that we house and we host the oldest and the largest pipeline program to law school. So we do focus on minority students and first generation students in that pipeline program. We bring undergraduates after their freshman, sophomore, and junior years to live with us for a month and to really help them think about and explore different types of legal careers, take a law class or two that's geared toward undergrads, pre-law students, to talk with them about law school applications and how to prepare for the LSAT and how to write a personal statement. And it's a really rich program, and it's a program I think that serves the College of Law really well. So when we think about minority, were you? Oh, you were.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
In the early days, absolutely. Because I went to Florida State University undergrad, so I just came over. One of my professors, Elwin Griffith, he encouraged me to take that program over the summer, and that was very helpful to me. That's
terrific. That's amazing. And I think that program actually really helps us with the diversity of our students. I think it's a service to law schools in general and the legal profession in general to have a pipeline program. But I do think many of our students who attend that program really become enamored with Florida State University, with the campus, with the Tallahassee area, and often have some interest in coming to law school at Florida State. And that's all really helpful. And so I really have always appreciated and cherished that about the law school. At the same time, I would say that we are behind and have been behind in effectively diversifying our faculty. By the way, our staff's pretty diverse too, but effectively diversifying.
I would say so.
Yeah, and I don't believe it's a hiring issue so much it is a retention issue. We are very good at hiring very talented faculty across the board, and then we will tend to lose them after a few years. That's true across the board, but it's particularly true for our minority faculty and for our women faculty. And so, when I arrived, I would hear things like, well, Tallahassee is just not a great place for women and minorities. I'm like, what are you talking about? We were just voted the #1 Black city for professionals in the country. How is it that this is a problem for us? But and so that's really been a focus in the last few years is how do we work in the environment that we have to ensure that we're providing all of the resources we can for success. So for example, like Vanderbilt, where I came from, Florida State University is not, the law school's not, the faculty don't like formal mentorship programs. They say we're a small faculty, we're close, we mentor one another, we don't need a formal mentorship process. Well, some people need a formal mentorship process because what you're really saying when you say, well, we're just one big happy family, we don't need a formal mentorship process, is most people have the relationships that they're comfortable with to get the mentorship that they need. But that's not true for everyone. You know, I remember being one of 2 female faculty members when I joined George Mason's law school. And I remember going into the, you know, faculty lounge, and the conversation would immediately turn to gutting boars' heads just to make me uncomfortable to leave the room. Right. I had the sense of humor and the strength to sit down and say, tell me about gutting boars' heads. Right. I'm not leaving. Right. Talk to me about that. I'm happy to have that conversation. But another female faculty member who joined with me immediately formed her exit strategy, right? Like, I don't want to be part of this space where I'm made to feel uncomfortable. And so I don't think that happens at Florida State, by the way. I don't think anyone's like,
well, those experiences, I would say
then
that, you know, those experiences formed your view of creating a welcoming, family-oriented environment. You know, for sure. That's what I'm hearing, and that's what I'm.
That's right. So how do we?
Quick station break, Dean Erin. If you are just joining us here on the Florida State University College of Law Black Alumni Network, my name is Marlon Hill, 1995 proud graduate of the College of Law. I'm here with Dean Erin O'Hara O'Connor. She's our current dean of the Florida State University College of Law. Joined us in 2016, and we are just now talking a little bit about the diversity, equity, and inclusion profile of the law school, and how we can recruit and retain more Black faculty and students, minority faculty and students. And so Dean Erin is just so glad to have you here on our Band TV semester, school year inaugural episode.
Thank you.
So you were saying regards to trying to lure or nurture or recruit more Black faculty or minority faculty. What advice would you have for a Black law student or a current young private practicing attorney or researcher that's thinking about being a professor to join your law school? What would be your pitch to the future law professor and the future law student?
Yeah, so I think what we've been focusing on more and more is creating the right environments for success. And the right environment for success involves a number of things. You know, too often in law schools with very few minority faculty, those faculty are asked to serve as representation for lots of things, right? And so we see too often committee obligations, committee service, student mentorship obligations end up being heavier for our minority faculty than they are for other faculty. And so one thing I tell our faculty recruits when they come in, and particularly our minority faculty recruits, is I will not ask you to do one thing more than I ask any other faculty to do, right? I'm not going to ask you to serve on more committees, because sure, wouldn't it be great if every single committee was diverse in some picture perfect way? I'm going to respect and honor that the fact that that doesn't get you tenure, that doesn't get you advancement, that's not why you were coming. You're happy to do what you need to do on the service front to be a good citizen and a responsible faculty member, but you're here to do your research, you're here to teach, and I want to make sure that you have all the time and all the resources to do that as successfully as possible. That really matters. And the other thing that I think is true for women and minority faculty is they won't always, and I was one of them, I was one of the they won't always think to negotiate for everything that they should or could. You know, our white male faculty are very good at negotiating for everything that they want and need.
Right. Knowing your value, right?
Yeah, and to feel entitled to it. And so just as a couple of deans negotiated for me against themselves and for me because they thought it was important that I have what I need, I'm always focused on that with faculty, really, if any faculty who I feel are not aggressively looking out for their own interests.
Right.
They should succeed too.
Has the rescission percentage changed? You mentioned earlier in our conversation was 40%. Where are we now, and what is the law school doing to kind of really throw the net out to get the best pool possible that would change your DEI profile?
Yeah. So on the student front, and when we're recruiting students in, we do a lot of special recruiting at HBCUs. We used to go to fairs and wait for students to show up at fairs. Now we reach pre-law societies, minority pre-law societies, throughout the Southeast region and sometimes beyond, and that helps tremendously when we think about having students apply to the law school. We've learned over time that once we've accepted a student, regardless of who they are, regardless of their background, we're equally good at recruiting them to join us as students, and we're equally good at retaining those students through law school. But we have to be much more intentional and work much harder at getting students to apply, as you say, casting that net as broadly as possible. When it comes to faculty, that's a little bit easier because there's, in terms of the net, because there's already a structure in place for anyone who is interested in a career in law. And so it kind of covers the whole net. What we've been talking about at the law school is creating what we call a pipeline faculty program. So finding young lawyers who are interested in careers in the academy who need some time to focus on their scholarship and what their scholarly agenda might look like. That's the most important part of being a successful candidate looking for a faculty position.
Is there a baby faculty? Is there a baby faculty academy?
There is academy for new teachers once you have the job, right?
Okay.
But what we're trying to do, and we did this at Vanderbilt with a fair amount of success, was we created what we called a visiting assistant professor position. So it would be a 2-year position with some teaching, but relatively low teaching obligations, but some, because it's important to also get teaching experience and show that you can be an effective teacher, but to leave as much time possible for creating a body of scholarship, creating a good paper that you're ready to present when you go out on the market, and to be thoughtful about what your research agenda would be going forward. If you've attended elite law schools and graduate programs, someone has groomed you to do all of this already. But there are many fantastic possible candidates, myself included. Without that fellowship at the University of Chicago, I would have been a terrible candidate. I mean, I wouldn't have had that time to think or that body of scholarship to be successful. So trying to think about how do we create that for more diverse possible candidates to the legal academy.
So before we talk about our favorite topic, alumni, I'm sure you've done some self-assessments and surveys among the students. What are the students saying and raving about, and what are they saying that we need to strive better at? What would you say? What feedback have you gotten?
Okay, so I would say on the what they rave about. So we have for many years and continue to perform exit interviews for every graduating student. So when they're leaving, we say, why did you choose FSU? What did you find particularly helpful or useful? And where would you like us to improve? Pretty uniformly, our students love our faculty. They really feel like their faculty, although very much focused on research and, at the table for important national and international policy conversations, really care about their teaching and are there for the students and are there to help and assist the students as they launch themselves into legal careers. And, that's pretty uniform. It's considered to be one of our strongest suits. And so they love that. Our students love all the practical skills opportunities that are available to to them in Tallahassee, and we've been growing more and more even outside Tallahassee, across the state, and even some out of the state. We have hundreds of externship and internship opportunities. There's more than 800 law firms in Tallahassee now. It's just such a rich array of possibilities. And by the way, I think that helps our students focus on schoolwork and conceptual stuff, because it's not at the expense of the practical skills. So I think our students feel that those programs are the best that they can possibly be. I know they love our professionalism program. They love our wellness programs. They love the student culture and all of the student organizations and co-curriculars that they can get involved in. I think all of that is a real source of strength for our students. In terms of what students would like to see more of, in recent years, they wanted to see more and maybe richer employment opportunities. When the job market's tough, there's not all those opportunities that they would like to see. That, by the way, has changed dramatically in the last few years. I think most of our students have found jobs by the time they get to graduation, and have found some really great experiences over the summer. But for many years, that's been a source of struggle for them. Communication is an issue for us always at the law school. We've got our students vary in age, when they join us from say 19 to mid 30s, and they communicate with one another in that age range in dramatically different ways. So some only want to be communicated through email. Others will not even look at their email. They will only look at social media. They disagree on the social media. So
I can't imagine that now, because when I was in law school, we didn't have all of those tools, right? But so certainly, even in the practice of law now, the younger lawyers and the more senior lawyers, it's a different way of communicating, and it's merging and also divergent at the same time. So it must be very interesting as well in terms of the law school experience. So how are you addressing that?
So we've done a couple of things. One is we don't use one medium. We blast across all media. Two, we're really focused recently on the importance of email, whether or not you like to use email when you get into the workspace. Most employers, most partners are going to communicate. Most clients are going to communicate with you via email, and so you're going to have to figure out how to navigate that space, whether you like it or not.
I'm waiting for Dean Erin on TikTok.
And then we've come up with a list of best practices for our administrators, so that we don't have these super long emails that communicate too much information. So we're not sending stuff out several times a day. Just trying to make it be as reasonable as it can possibly be.
Wow. Well, listen, we certainly want to thank you for supporting the BAN network, the Black Alumni Network, birth right in the middle of a pandemic, led by Celicia Smith-Gordon, and now Conti Moore is our new president for this school year. When the idea of the network came to your attention, what did you get most excited about, and where would you like to see it go in terms of supporting the law school community?
Yeah. So what I was most excited about when we talked about forming the Black Law Alumni Network was twofold. One was to try to find a way for identity group based alum groups, but starting with the Black Law Alumni Network. So prior to COVID, we got alums together only via geographic region. So we host a reception in Orlando every year, in Tampa and Miami and Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach and Atlanta and so on and so forth. And they're really great opportunities for our alums who are in a particular area to network together. But when we couldn't gather in person, it really challenged us, but also gave us an opportunity to think about ways to bring alums together that were based on subject matter of practice, but also affinity groups. The university has a Black Alumni Network, and Hispanic Alumni Network, and a Women's Alumni Network. Why couldn't we do similar types of programming and affiliations at the College of Law. So part of it was that, just to bring Black alums together to network and to support one another in their professional journeys. But the other reason was because we are a law school that has tremendous alumni involvement in general. I mean, we've got literally thousands of alums who stay actively involved in the law school. We wanted to provide an opportunity to use the strength of our Black law alums to help us do a better job recruiting students to the law school and recruiting and retaining our Black faculty. And it's been tremendous to see the students and the faculty, talk with excitement about all of the Black alums that they know now and that they work with, and who support them and who they support, who they never would have met if that if FAN hadn't been formed.
The door is wide open, Dean, and we're certainly just getting started. Silesia set the foundation in a tsunamic way, no other way that Silesia can. And then now Conti is in her own way is going to be taking us through this school year. What is your ask, alumni, and not just the Black law alumni, but for all the alumni, call to action for the alumni in this school year and going forward? Coming out of the pandemic, we're back outside. We're trying to get back on track with our families and our law firms and our practices. What is your big ask of the alumni besides increasing our percentage of donations to the fund?
Yeah. So I tell alums this all the time whenever I meet with groups of alums in person. If we are a tier 1 law school at Florida State's College of Law, but if you look at our budget, we have nowhere near the budget of other tier 1 law schools. And we have the smallest budget of all tier 1 law schools.
How far off are we?
Millions.
Okay.
But I tell our alums the reason we're a tier 1 law school is the involvement of alums in the life of the law school. We could not be a tier 1 law school without all that our alums provide. Yes, financial contributions are a piece of that, but alums get involved in the life of the law school in many ways, and I think it enriches the alums as much as it benefits the law school. But we have alums, and so I'm always encouraging. My ask is, get involved in a way that you think would be useful and helpful. We have alums who come and they give talks about their particular area of practice. It may be an unusual one that law students wouldn't think about, but talk to them about what it is like and how, if they wanted to pursue a career in that practice, how would they go about thinking about it. We have alums who serve as career mentors to students to help them kind of get a foothold in a particular geographic area or a particular practice area. We have a mentorship program that helps our students get comfortable with law school in their first year of law school. And we have a mentorship program we call our Bridge to Practice program, which enables our graduates to have mentors that help them get comfortable with practice life and to deal with some of the ethical challenges of practice life. So often our young graduates say, is this just the way it is, or should I be avoiding this particular situation? And if I should be avoiding this particular situation, how should I go about doing that in the best possible way? We have alums who serve as mentors for Inns of Courts programs. We have trial team coaches and moot court coaches and other advocacy team coaches. We have alums who serve as mentors for our graduates preparing to take the bar exam to kind of help to encourage them forward. And I think all of these opportunities are opportunities for our alums to kind of remember what it was like to be a law student and kind of reach back and help our law students think about what's the best possible path forward. There's so many ways I could give advice to students or faculty member even, and students will say, oh, well, that's just what the administration says or what the faculty says. But when they hear the same things from our alums, or maybe they hear something different, either way, somebody out there with experience, real practice experience, who knows not just the law school space, but that path forward, it's just tremendously valuable and rewarding. And those are all volunteer opportunities that many law schools pay full-time people to do. But we rely on our just really super helpful and involved networks.
We really appreciate that laundry list of options. Besides giving of your treasure, give of your time, and then also your talent, in terms of your area of practice. Those are the three things that I think that any alum can give. But as we're winding down here, Dean, on our season one for the school year, we certainly want to encourage anyone that's listening and watching us right now, if you want to drop any specific questions for Dean Erin 007, if you'd like to ask any questions, just drop them in the comments, and we will try to answer them for you. But speaking of law students and the bar, in the college football playoffs of bar exams, we are usually in the playoffs, Dean, in the top 4, right? So where's the tea being made as to how we could win the national championship of the bar exams each cycle? I know you deans in your dean academies talk about this.
Yes. So we have focused in recent years. One thing I was going to say about what our students have asked us to do a better job with is academic support. Once upon a time in law school, we were all thrown into a room and we had to figure it out for ourselves. And some of us succeeded and some of us didn't. But today's law student wants something more. Today's law student doesn't want us to hide all the balls. It's one thing to force us to find an issue and figure out how to research it, because that's what we'll do as lawyers. But how can we provide support for study habits, for learning how to memorize effectively, for thinking about taking notes and outlines, and all of those issues that especially our young students struggle with. So we've been providing more and more academic support at the College of Law. We now have an academic programs office that provides writing support for all of our students, academic support for our struggling students, and then just law school wide workshops on a number of topics to just
how recent is that program?
We started the program 4 years ago, but our brand new dean has just blown that office up and just provided so many new opportunities. That's Karusha Sharp. And she works with CC Smith, who's another faculty member who's providing the writing support in advanced writing courses, helps students take their writing samples and make them really sharp for job application purposes, etc. That academic programs office starts with the first year students to kind of help them figure out how to study and memorize and prepare an outline, etc., but moves students all the way through to support for the bar exam. So
I'm telling you that is just phenomenal to hear. I certainly didn't have the depth of that back when I was in law school, and I can definitely see the benefit of having a support system like that to kind of help, because especially for first generation law students, where you don't have other lawyers you can call and judges and other friends, to have that support system, I know is priceless. So as you look forward to the school year, Dean, going forward, I know you have homecoming coming up. Are there any major events that you would like to highlight for the school year that we need to make sure that we calendar and save the date that you'd love for us to support as part of the community?
Well, so homecoming, as you say, is next weekend. We're very excited for that. We have our usual 2 p.m. university-wide parade, but our law school students are actually marching in the parade this year, which will be fun. Sean Pittman, one of our alums, is hosting the law school reception on Friday evening, but he holds a pig roast for Black alums of Florida State University at that event as well. So it'll be a combined Black alum and Florida State Law School alum event, and that'll be from 6 to 10 p.m. at his home. Saturday, we're not sure the time. It depends on when game time is, but we'll have our tailgate on the law school green. We are kicking off at that tailgate a platform for our new Law and Business Center. We're very excited for that. It's going to be a place for people who are interested, people who are in business and people who are in law, as well as students of law and business, to engage on common topics of interest to law and business. Really excited for that. The same
And
day.
when is that? When is that?
That'll be next Saturday at the tailgate, and the time for the tailgate will depend on the game time. So we're hoping for an afternoon game. Fingers crossed for that.
Yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there this weekend, and I certainly want to look at seeing if I can make it back up the following weekend. I was hoping that the Orange Bowl committee would put me right in sync with homecoming, but it didn't work out that way. But we're going to figure something out.
Okay. Well, also that Saturday, the law school is, I'm kind of excited for this. We're sponsoring a NASCAR car, also homecoming weekend. There's a young woman in one of the minor series who is going to have an FSU law logo on her car.
No way.
And yes, we're really excited for that. She's very talented. I'm hoping we can finally have a woman in the the major cup series in the future with her. But just before the next weekend's official homecoming events, we'll have the unveiling of Celicia Smith Gordon's portrait next Thursday afternoon in the Rotunda, and that'll be at 3 p.m. next Thursday with a nice reception at 4 p.m. So excited for all of that. I've been talking with Conti. I don't know how solid plans are, but it also sounds like maybe there'll be a band reunion on campus in the spring. Mm-hmm. Very excited for that. I think we're looking at March 29th, 30th, and April 1st. I'm excited for that for many reasons, but one of which is that's our big recruiting new students weekend. And so we're hoping to kind of join forces and make both events the best they can be.
We are going to definitely be supporting both of those major events here in the fall and the spring. For those law alumni or who are just reconnecting and coming back home to build reconnect their relationship with the law school, Dean, what's the best way for them to reach you, or who is the best person besides the Black Alumni Network, of course, for alumni to re-engage with giving and mentoring and supporting the law school community?
Yes, I can always be reached by email. I love to hear from our alums. My email is eO'Connor, EOCONNOR @law.fsu.edu. And Becky Shepard heads our alumni affairs office. And so she's a great person to talk with for financial contributions or any kind of volunteer opportunities. She's often organizing folks together.
Well, we just want to thank you and your team, your administrative team, the faculty team, the support services team of the law schools. We're just so grateful for creating such a welcoming and supportive environment for our law students and the faculty as well. We look forward to building on this relationship with the Black Alumni Network, and looking forward to also welcoming any recommendations that you may have of interesting alumni or faculty or topics for our remaining seasons for the school year. But we're just so glad that you could just join us for our opening episode for the school year. Any parting words that you'd like to share before we close?
I just want to thank you, Marlon, for doing this. It's a way to bring people together. It's a way to learn about what's happening at the law school. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time and the effort to do this. I can tell you we've got other affinity groups trying to form at the law school, and everyone wants to be like Van, but no one's come close yet. You guys are really just taking everything to the next level. And
well, we love to set the bar with Black excellence, and we don't mind being mirrored or inspiring to aspire, and we welcome the entire law school community to follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook. We are connected to the law school directly. We are part of the law school's outreach. Basically, this is not a separate entity in and of itself, but we certainly welcome any of our Black alumni and Black law students and faculty to follow us, and even our non-Black members of the community as well, to connect with us and network and to share the same experiences and journeys that we have. We're all trying to prosper and to be excellent and to be good stewards and ambassadors on behalf of the law school. So that's what we hope to do through Band TV, and we welcome any engagement at all. But Dean Erin O'Hara O'Connor, we wish you the best for your 2022-2023 school year. Wishing you #1 bar passage rate. We wish you a #1 recruiting class, all the accolades that you aspire as dean, and we're glad that you chose this calling to be a part of our community.
Thank you, Marlon. I hope I see you in person soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good night. Thank you for all you do.